Welcome to the Pregnancy Help Podcast. I'm Christine Grimmett, and I'm joined by a few of our leaders here at Heartbeat International to talk about the anniversary of the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe. This episode is, of course, being published after the actual June 24th anniversary. And that's because we had team members traveling for events like the Celebrate Life Day in Washington, D.C. So we'll get to hear a little bit more about that in just a minute. But, a lot of our emails and social media posts lately over the past couple of weeks have really led up to this anniversary as we reflected on the past. So we wanted to talk to our podcast audience about that as well. And now during these times that we're in, it's just as important as ever for you as a team member of a pregnancy help organization to take time for yourself to hone in on those skills that are vital to the work that you do at the center or maternity home. That's why Heartbeat International offers the week-long training Pregnancy Help Institute. This intensive training offers 3 tracks: leadership, fundraising, and new director. And this takes place in Columbus, Ohio, the week of July 24th, which is quickly approaching. So head over to heartbeatservices.org for more information and registration. Now, here we are with Jor-El Godsey, the president of Heartbeat International, Andrea Trudden, vice president of communications and marketing, Tracie Shellhouse, vice president of ministry services, and Danielle White, our general counsel. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Thanks, Christine. Great to be together, be with you, and to talk about it. A year ago, we had an amazing thing happen, right? This Dobbs decision, which we had got a preview of a little bit in May, came down in June. And I just remember that it was a day of joy and excitement. And here we are a year later, and some of you guys got to travel to DC for the big rally. So Tracie, give us a perspective that you saw when you were there. It's kind of you're getting your feet wet with some of these nationally focused events, but I know you were at the march. This is a bit different, but it was still some striking things that you were telling us.
Well, I think the thing that stood out to me most at the rally and the gala on Saturday is the beautiful representation of the generations. That there were young, and when I say young, I'm talking about families bringing their newborns all the way to those that are in their 90s with canes and walkers there for the rally and the events. And what struck me as I looked at that, we've known for a long time, and we've messaged that the generation that is coming up is the most pro-life generation that we have seen in decades. But it was so evident at the rally and at the gala, and the scripture that went through my mind was Proverbs 22:6. That when we train up our children in the way that they should go, when they are older, they will not depart from it. And we did see decades of departure from upholding the sanctity of human life in our nation in general. Now, of course, there were those of us that held tightly to that and were those out there sharing the right to life and the pregnancy help organizations and messaging these things and calling people back to what we know to be true. And those generations, many of them that made the rally and the gala possible weren't with us. They've gone on. They're on the other side and they're in eternity. And yet we see their legacy. And it was awesome to see the legacy of the things to come, the legacy that's been built and what that has propagated, because there are so many young people involved and engaged and excited. And I found that to be very striking, but also it instilled in me an extreme sense of hope. The hope of what we've seen in this last year, but the hope of the decades to come.
That's excellent. That's something that there's an energy and excitement that's always a part of these kind of events when we have the generations, the younger people involved. I know that that's true of the March for Life, and know now that it's also true of the Celebrate Life opportunity. Now, Andrea, you were there too on the ground, but you had a little different role. You were running around trying to get some video and some interviews, and you were doing your kind of media thing. And so you had a different perspective of the event. You were at the same location, just different effort that you were after.
That's right. And the energy, I can't help but kind of mimic or mirror that in that language because it was so evident. Because while it was lower in numbers than the standard March for Life, the high energy of all the generations and all the people there, it just radiated. It was very fascinating to watch. And we had the opportunity to bounce around and talk to those students who had come in. We have some great video with my colleague, Laura Current, going around and just talking with them and asking them, why were they here? What did this mean to them? While behind the scenes, we were also able to get interviews with those who've been in this movement for decades. So we were behind the scenes, had the ability to talk with those who've been working for, again, decades to move for this fight for life, with AG Lynn Fitch, who's been working with us on a donation drive, Lila Rose and Kristen Hawkins. We had the opportunity to see Vice President Mike Pence join us again, who's been a staunch champion for life for years with his work with pregnancy centers and just advancing that culture. Of course, that's generational as well in his family. But just hearing from various speakers from all aspects, because we have influencers there, we have those working in our legal realm and our political realm, all for this one mission toward life, which was very good to see. Of course, it's an event that we were intending to come to really celebrate as one, but that was very momentous for me to see all the combination of people come be there, looking out upon, again, those youth who were right in front, very high energy, taking their photos, getting their selfies, carrying their signs. So one moment that really stood out to me during the rally was when Marjorie from SBA List was up talking to the group, and she asked everybody to hold up their signs. And everybody did, and she just started reading them. And of course, you're looking out across the sea of generations, but again, that high energy was very, very evident. And that was a moment that really jumped out. Of course, I was at the top of the stairs and just looking down, and it was so fascinating to witness. And then later throughout the day, there were different meetings going on all over DC. And again, it was those various aspects of the pro-life movement coming together to see how we can continue this momentum, because we're 1 year in. And we know that it's going to be a long journey for us to continue down, but nobody seemed at all hesitant. They were all ready to continue these conversations and see what we can do to work together in order to achieve true cultural change, because that's the next beat for us, is to actually shift the culture to where we embrace life, which of course we do see it within our movement a little bit more, but actually kind of having those ripples go out to where everybody sees the value and potential in each and every life.
So this event was actually at the reflecting pool, like right in front of the Lincoln Memorial at the reflecting pool. So really, it's quite apropos that we're reflecting about the year that has been. And so, Tracie, you haven't always been with Heartbeat. You actually just joined us within the last year. Mm-hmm. So a year ago, you were, the CEO of a center in East Tennessee, very different perspective. And now you're looking at it from the lens of Heartbeat, which is, while we share and serve the mission, we see things from a little different perspective, because we're not doing the work in the local community like the local centers are. So give me some thoughts about really this past year, as you've transitioned from being a director of a local center to being the vice president at Heartbeat.
Okay. Well, one thing that I noticed quickly, even before that transition, that I think is worth noting is with the Dobbs decision, something that I witnessed, and it surprised me, was a defecting of the quasi-pro-lifers, a defecting of those that had, I maybe had even been involved with in church over the years, those that were saying they were pro-life, but then suddenly when they looked at the overturning of Roe, they sort of spoke out, and they were like, oh, what about all of the hard cases? But on the other side of that, what we saw was a doubling down of those that are devout. A seriousness and a fortitude, the recognition that there is so much work to be done. And so something that I saw as a pregnancy help center leader was that there were challenges, but there were great opportunities. One of the challenges was just messaging. messaging that there's still a great need. As a matter of fact, a growing need, a greater need. Pregnancy help is as important and gaining in importance. This is a movement that will be here until the end of time here on earth. And I sincerely believe that. There's a lot of those overcoming the idea that in states, say, like Tennessee, which had a trigger law that effectively banned abortion, that there's no more abortion in Tennessee. Well, first thing, we know that chemical abortion is still very accessible, but also there are, everyone's got a car. Most people do. And so pregnancy help is still very, very important, but not just because abortion is accessible, because, as I've said for many years, pregnancy help is not about abortion, it's about people. It's about serving those that are our neighbors and stepping up alongside and loving them in word and in deed. Some of the challenges that I faced in East Tennessee were some of the cyber attacks, some verbal attacks, those kinds of things. But then we also know across our nation, those leading pregnancy help not only had to endure that, but even vandalism, physical attacks, and those kinds of things. And so it was a new time in serving in the pregnancy help movement because it seemed to be, and now on the heartbeat side of things, where I was very focused in the Southeast and Southeast Tennessee and the surrounding states. Now I'm looking at things on a national and international level, and that is mind-boggling at times. There are so many things happening in so many different places. There are so many fronts, and yet we're also seeing so many victories. And I think about those that are being persecuted. And honestly, if you're in pregnancy help, that's you. There's persecution there. And that is because when we are doing holy work, there's persecution that comes along with it. And I was thinking about, Mark Houck and what he endured this last year. Just recently, Mark Crosby and Dick Schaefer, two elderly men that were peacefully, outside of an abortion clinic that were attacked by an activist, and one, very physically harmed, and the other, there were some minor injuries. And so we are seeing those kinds of things happening. And what came to mind is when I think about when Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, when Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. And there's sacrifice. But we also get to see God at work all around us, and we get to see miracles in the pro-life movement. And I was recently listening to a sermon by Philip DeCourcy, and he said something that struck me, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is the great campaign that the Lord has given me the opportunity to join. He said that persecution doesn't make martyrs, it reveals them. And in that, it really, if you dig down, what it's saying is the martyrs are already there. It's just the persecution reveals them. Because what does a martyr do? They give up their life for something they believe in. They give up their life for their God. And in pregnancy help, and we know this, there's a lot of sacrifices made. Over the last 5+ decades, there have been so many sacrifices made in order to serve our neighbors and to love them and to protect life. And I think it is important to sometimes sort of step back and recognize that this great movement and that beautiful young generation that Andrea and I got to rally with on Saturday, and I got to spend the evening with on Saturday evening, that is a generation made possible by the martyrs in our movement that have sacrificed life. They have made great sacrifices to ensure that new lives are born and that we have the opportunity to change our culture's mindset to one of life.
And of course, martyrs, and you're not so much saying that they laid down their physical life, but they certainly laid down other opportunities that they could have had to serve, as so many in the pregnancy help movement do every day that are in it for life. So thank you for that perspective. It's always good. I am always mindful of the last of the Beatitudes, where all the other Beatitudes are, well, blessed if you do this, blessed if you do that. But the last one says, you are blessed if someone else does something to you, which is persecute you, right? Blessed are those who are persecuted for his name's sake. And certainly that's what we're doing when we champion the gift of life. Now, Andrea, you've been, as our communications leader and vice president, you've been really tangling with some of the messaging from the media coverage of PHOs over the last year, as if it just began last year. I mean, this has been going on actually, for decades. It's just ramped up at a whole nother level with the last year and a half. What are just one or two things for senators to keep in mind regarding their messaging about the mission, about their work?
Oh, that's a great question, because yes, we have been trying to tell people and make sure that everyone knows about pregnancy help for at least 50 years. But over this past year, we've had such a spotlight that has been honestly kind of interesting to watch, because while I find it to be quite exhilarating and very excited to see pregnancy help out there, it's not always from a good angle, of course, but all news is good news, even bad news. So we're getting the message out. Every opportunity is very good. And the great part, even before the Dobbs decision began, is we did have a concentrated effort to get those stories of hope out through pregnancy help, not only through our pregnancy help news, but actually working with ministry partners as well to place articles within a variety of more mainstream news outlets to share those stories. Because no matter what, nobody can deny a woman's story. So they may attack our work. They may not agree with our work, but our clients within this movement who've been served through pregnancy help and the lives of their families that have been touched, that cannot be belittled, that cannot be attacked. They'll try sometimes, but overall, you cannot deny somebody's story. So those are what I strongly encourage, that if pregnancy centers are not already sharing those stories through their social media outlets, through their newsletters, through their local media, start. Always strive to make sure you have those releases and such. But if you are called to do so, that's the best way to really make sure that people are aware of your services, because the woman sharing how she found herself in a moment of fear and found your organization and went there and was served by a caring consultant within, and then received parenting classes and material aid through a difficult time, and now sharing where she is, that's always it carries such impact that really should be championed and amplified as much as possible, because it is the good news of the work that we do. So anytime we have that ability to proactively get positive news and reports out there, it's a good idea. And then within your owned media as well, which would be your website and your social media, make sure that you're sharing those stats. If you follow Heartbeat and receive our emails, you know of our Life Trends report, which we publish annually, which shares national and international details, because we are a big movement that I know organizations are in various aspects of the US and the world. But as a movement, you can share those numbers as to how many lives we are truly impacting, as well as honing in on your specific center, because you matter. The clients that you are serving matter and are important. And so it is good to share the stories and the stats, because together they really resonate with all audiences, and you cannot deny the facts. And so those are some positive ways to proactively share some details. Now, for the news has, of course, had some different angles against pregnancy help organizations too, either through having to share the horrendous news of the vandalism that we encountered over the last year throughout 30 states, or just interesting attacks on the language that is used in regard to pregnancy help organizations. I encourage you to just hold your head high and stand true on your mission and the work that you're doing and the clients that you serve, because we know the certain claims that they're putting out. They've put them out for more than 30 plus years. We have a whole site, pregnancycentertruth.com, which refutes many of those claims, and we are continuing to build on as as our movement grows and as the claims get more ridiculous, because we have all the facts and data to back us up for the proof of the good work that we do. So when those moments happen, just hold to the truth. A reminder that you never have to accept an interview. You are in full control of your words and your time. So if you do feel called to accept an interview from maybe a suspicious reporter, we're always here to talk it out. At Heartbeat International, we always strive to be available. So if you call us or you email us, you will hear back from us and we can talk through a strategy. But overall, just be affirmed in that the services you're providing and the work that you are offering, they matter to the clients walking into your doors today. And that's what you just need to kind of remind not only yourself, but your staff, those moments too, because it can seem overwhelming. It can seem that the world is against us in moments, but you have a whole network here within the Heartbeat International world that is right behind you. So just hold true to the truth and put out those great news articles, stories, share them with your supporters and your community, and rest assured in all that you are doing is for a greater good, that we will not know this side of heaven, but we will definitely be very, very blessed.
So thanks for sharing that, Andrea. And when you say stories, sometimes, that can just be a really good quote that a client has given us, because there can be in just a few words, in the emotion of that client, a real powerful communication about how she felt about the care that she was given, about where her heart was at, and then now where it is. So so you talked about a story that was from kind of soup to nuts, like when we met her, how we served her, how she's doing all these great things, and then where she's at, which those are awesome. And those are, in certain forms, those are phenomenal. But you can also kind of get snippets along with stats. So you can tell a little bit of the story can convey a lot in a certain amount, particularly on social media opportunities, that there are just great client quotes that we can share probably more faster than we can write full on stories. But both of those are powerful, great advice for us. Now, Danielle, the legal world has kind of been, slightly wacky over the last year. So I mean, it really, like, the whole legal world got turned upside down with the Dobbs decision. And you and I had the privilege of traveling to DC for the oral arguments, which was the December before. And then we got to as a team, we celebrated everybody else. But wow, there's some big things in this transition from the federal reality, being all eyes upon the Supreme Court, to now suddenly and thankfully shifting away from that kind of what I have really come to understand has been really the tyranny of abortion on our judicial system and our legal system. But now it's shifted to the states. And, and we would say before, like, oh, it's going to go from one battle to 50 battles. Well, I don't think I certainly didn't have an appreciation for really what that would look like and how vast and diverse that would be. But there are some big things happening in the various states. What have we seen in that on the legal side of that, Danielle?
Yeah, well said. I mean, things have been happening at a fever pitch since the Dobbs decision came down. And I'll start with some of I guess you could say there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'll start with the good. The good is that abortion is illegal now in all or most cases in 12 states. And there are now 7 states that have gestational limits that are earlier than what was allowed by the Supreme Court prior to Dobbs. You'll recall that prior to Dobbs, no state could outlaw abortion prior to 20 weeks. And now there are 7 states that place limits much earlier than 20 weeks. Another good thing is that in 21 states, there have been measures that were passed that involved funding for pregnancy centers that would help women to be able to have the resources and support to choose life for their babies. And so there's a recognition that just because abortion is quote unquote illegal in a state, it doesn't mean that women just automatically have the help they need. That need is still very much there. And the legislatures are recognizing that and putting their dollars to help women in those states. Those are some really good things. There's also greater interest in how to better help and support pregnancy help organizations and the women and families that they serve. And so I think that in the coming year, we can expect to see even more innovative and creative ways of serving women and helping to empower them to choose life. Some of the not so great things that have been going on. Some of the challenges we have on the ground are those abortion states moving to protect abortion in their laws or their state constitutions. We had some disappointing ballot initiatives, whether that was in Michigan, where the voters overwhelmingly affirmed abortion and placed it in their state constitution, or in Kansas, where an effort to protect life failed. We've seen some setbacks, and we know that there will be work to be done in those states. For the pregnancy help movement, there's been an initiative to enact laws regarding false and deceptive trade practices, false advertising types of laws that are really duplicative, because false advertising has always been or has long been illegal in the states, but now those laws are targeted specifically at pregnancy help organizations. So we're watching those very closely and exploring ways to challenge them. And then, of course, the physical attacks that have been referenced throughout this podcast on pregnancy centers. I think we all anticipated that might happen, but I was surprised by how many incidents have occurred attacking pregnancy centers. And then what felt like a collective shrug from the law enforcement community. There were over 100 attacks, and so far there have only been 2 indictments against those who perpetrated the attacks. So we're looking forward to seeing some more indictments and some more enforcement of the FACE Act, which protects pregnancy centers just as much as it protects abortion clinics. We've also seen an effort to, and this is what I would put this one squarely in the ugly category, an effort to ban abortion pill reversal by Colorado and Vermont. And that is especially ugly because it's the legal equivalent of holding her down to the table and forcing her to make a decision that she no longer wants. So for all of the bluster about women having the choice, Colorado and Vermont have taken it upon themselves to remove that choice from her. But rather than end on the ugly, there's a lot of hope even in those situations, because in Colorado, for instance, the medical boards, the Board of Medicine, Pharmacy, and Nursing have convened to make a decision about whether abortion pill reversal falls within the standard of care. And that decision will greatly affect the impact of that Colorado ban. That meeting, by the way, was just unbelievably encouraging. The pro-life community showed up and just overwhelmingly, not just in quantity, but in quality of the testimony that was given in favor of APR. And it was really an amazing thing to watch those medical professionals stand.
Thank you. That last part, there was really interesting, because while you describe them as the pro-life community, and they very well may be, they were really coming at this from a very professional understanding. They were talking about some of the rationale behind declaring, a drug like progesterone to be banned, like doesn't rise to the level of the state's own rules and whatnot. That was fascinating, because maybe they were pro-life, and we believe they were, but they were really representing the issue that the state of Colorado was trying to kind of force this onto a system that would never otherwise arrive at this conclusion. So very, very encouraging.
Yeah, there were professionals that were addressing the pharmacology, toxicology, the impact on medicine more broadly when the state gets involved in this manner, ethics. It was so impressive to watch the quality of the testimony, and those that were in favor of abortion pill reversal outnumbered those who were against it by a great share.
Mm-hmm. So looking ahead, we certainly see more of the ugly, and then more of the bad, but hopefully more of the good too, right? That we have ahead of us.
Yes, definitely. It's going to be a big year. It was a big year this year. And, I think that even as the other side tries to double down on its efforts to silence pregnancy centers, the reality is that every time they talk about silencing us, they still have to talk about us. So they're raising awareness for us too. So it's all good.
It's true. And just for those that don't know, Danielle was on maternity leave for part of this year because with child number 5, I think the children come along with every like major SCOTUS decision. So I think her kids are named like Nifla and Dobbs, and I'm just kidding. Actually, that's delightful. I can say that because she's not next to me and can't throw anything at me. So, but yeah, it's great. It's been really exciting because I remember that trip to DC and thinking about Dobbs and what it could mean. And so we had a lot of discussions about what were the possibilities. And then Alito comes and basically just tears apart Roe, which is exactly what we wanted it to do. Of course, the Supreme Court didn't go further and like declare personhood, which was within the realm of possibility, but they just simply didn't go there. And that leaves this battle across the states, which puts us into a couple of dynamics, which has already been alluded to. We have abortion states now that those are states that are declaring themselves safe. They're doing everything they can to protect the abortion community in their midst, the abortionists. Even some states are talking about protecting them for so-called post-birth abortions, right? These things that which, another word for that would be, infanticide, right? They're talking about these things, and there's just a level of craziness that's going on as far as what I would contend are the bought and paid for politicians that are doing this on behalf of the abortion industry, and they're really trying to protect this abortion industry, much like the slave states protected slavery back in the 1800s, and at the same time we're seeing also what we saw in the 1800s is just like we had free states back then that declared themselves sanctuaries for life and lives that were otherwise being diminished or even killed. Now we have life states who are making that declaration, like you pointed out, 12 that have done that, and others that are working their way towards greater footing. And so we really are seeing now pregnancy help organizations operating in these two types of paradigms across the U.S. Just any quick thoughts about how that is creating a kind of a differing dynamic? I know, Tracie, in Tennessee, you were in a life state, but you actually right on not far from the border, I think just a few miles from the border, into a state that was allowing for abortion.
Yes, and it made for complicated messaging and understanding of our community. We had potential clients and patients calling, trying to understand what's going on. We had donors, we had people from all over, and it created a lot of interesting conversations and situations, but also a lot of great opportunity. But even for those of us in pregnancy help, at times we found it a little bit confounding and confusing, even as to what was available, what is the present situation, because it seemed to be so fluid. And that still seems to be the case now, at least for me, as I'm still trying to get my footing. I feel like, and those of you that have actually taken a trip with me, I am not the most sure-footed. Andrea can attest. We went down the side of a mountain less than a week ago together, and at one point it looked like I was skiing. That being said, that's sort of how I feel today. Is I feel like I'm trying to surf this new wave, and it is constantly changing. And so it's been very, very interesting, and I anticipate that it will be for quite some time to come.
Well, you mentioned fluid, and I think dynamic, has been the term I've been using, because it's certainly very dynamic. You have things that are going on. Some states, Danielle, as you were talking about bans, what one state does, the other states are looking for, and hopefully the reverse is true, is that where gains on life are happening, those are also happening. But the one thing that we do know, even in the midst of all of this, that there was this moment where some people, in fact, I've heard this said, well, now that abortion has been banned in our state, what will the pregnancy centers do? Well, lo and behold, the pregnancy centers have been busier than ever, because pregnancy help is always important. And Andrea, you alluded to this, that it's something that is going to be necessary regardless of what the laws are. It's because these are things that women will encounter, that people will encounter, that they'll find themselves in difficult situations where abortion is a possibility. And in some cases, they feel like that's the only opportunity that they have, and they feel forced into that decision. And that's exactly what pregnancy help centers are designed to do, to help them not feel forced, to help them overcome those obstacles, to help them find their footing, to be able to say yes to that life within them, yes to what God has provided for them, and yes to the mission that God has called pregnancy centers to do to help her choose life. And that's one of the great things that we get to celebrate. We certainly get to see and encourage. Have to remind some of our media friends that no, Pregnancy Help has had no reason to go away. In fact, it's only increased. I was talking to Nafisa just this morning. She's a director of Option Line, and she said, the calls at Option Line have increased like 27% in just this year. So it's been an amazing growth opportunity. I know that some centers have maybe seen their numbers drop a little bit, but the majority have seen them increase over the past year. And I think the law as a teacher, and we'll continue to instruct our population that abortion is not the best, that we can do better than abortion, and hopefully our laws will be better about doing that going forward. But meanwhile, the pregnancy help movement is alive, it's robust, it's dynamic, it's serving in all of these areas, and only learning new and important ways to continue to see that happen. So we're grateful for our opportunity to serve. We're grateful for the role here at Heartbeat, where we get to see and experience, and we can commiserate with those that are in the thick of the issue, dealing with abortion states that it seems like everything is tilted against the pregnancy centers. We can also celebrate with those that are having state legislators that are saying yes and more to what they're doing and how they're serving women. But that's our great opportunity to do that, not just here in the U.S., but around the world, where the echoes of Dobbs have gone. The overturning of Roe has become important, not just across our country, but in countries around the world. And so it's exciting to be a part of Heartbeat International. Grateful for the team that does this, that can fly places. I know Andrea and Tracie were like bouncing around the country last week on the West, and then they're back into the East, and now they're back in the office. So that was pretty quick. And fortunately, Danielle and I didn't have to do that this week, right? It'll be our turn in a week or two to come. So it's a great opportunity, great privilege for us to be here. It's the fact that pregnancy help is more important than ever, and that's why this mission didn't start with Roe, and it's not done because Roe has gone. It is because life is important, and that's our privilege and opportunity to serve. And we enjoy it, and we love those that we serve, and we continue to stand with and for the pregnancy help movement. We want to see it grow. We want to see it advance. We want to see it walking in unity and serving those that the Lord puts on our path.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here and sharing some of your recent experience and reflecting a little bit on the past year. It's been an interesting year, and I look forward to the year ahead. I know there's a lot of good things ahead. One thing I want to mention, because a couple of you had talked about where have you been, whether it was the Celebrate Life Day or it was some of the client stories that we share on Heartbeat International's social media. So just wanted to let our listeners know, if you follow Heartbeat International on social media, you can see some of those stories and those posts and those videos. It's really fun to catch up with the team and their travels, but also to see how Heartbeat does social media. And you're welcome to share those posts and kind of get an idea of how you can do posts at your center as well. So with that, stay updated by subscribing to the podcast. And we thank you for listening to this episode of the Pregnancy Help Podcast.